So a popular YouTube content trend is the emergence of the tier list. Tier list in all sorts of video games across all sorts of different topics. And I like talking about those in regards to Destiny 2. But when I talk about them, a lot of people in my comment section aren't on the same page with me for the criteria at which I judge the tier list. We can disagree on opinions, we can all have opinions, and have different reasons why we came to that conclusion. For future tier list videos, I need to have the attitude and presentation where you can just take the information that I'm giving, and if you find it somewhat useful, take what you like and don't take what you don't. It really is as simple as that. Now, today's video is going to talk about a tier list where it accounts for average player skill. If you take a look on screen, I have a couple different categories, which is difficult to pilot and low reward, meaning that you have to be a phenomenal player to make it work, and even if you do make it work, it still doesn't really reward you. To be extra clear, it doesn't reward you when compared to every other class. Tier lists are always relative and depend on what people value in the meta at that given time. So whenever I make a tier list talking about the most competitive of the most competitive setups, I always have a lot of comments talking about classes that give you a lot of bang for your buck and are easier to use. If you scroll up the tier list, you'll see that I have something that says low effort / skill required, but it gives you a high reward. You see Attunement of Grace, Top Tree Bubble, and Missile Titan. Those are 3 great examples of that. And on the flip side, in today's video, when I talk about something like Top Tree Dawnblade that I deem is difficult to pilot and has a high reward, some people are going to say Dawnblade is easy. And from my point of view, playing Dawnblade is pretty easy. In the grand scheme of all first-person shooter games and all video games, playing Top Tree Dawnblade at a top level is easy. But now, branching out really wide, looking at the big scope here, big picture, for the average player, Top Tree Dawnblade requires a lot of game knowledge. The only reason that you think it's easy is because you're frequently playing other players that are on a similar level and have done the requisite game knowledge research to know angles at which they can safely take on Top Tree Dawnblade, as well as the mechanical skill of navigating the higher speed that it gives you. So for purposes of today's video, I don't want to hear in the comment section, but Top Tree Dawnblade is easy to play, because that doesn't matter here. We're talking about the average skill level. And for me, it's kind of hard to unlearn everything. You're going to see in the background gameplay, I really struggle to pump the brakes and try to do bad habits in the game. It's really difficult. I basically need to be firing on all cylinders to not be firing on all cylinders, if you catch my drift. It takes just as much effort to not play good intentionally. So forgive me if I'm not accurate on what an accurate depiction of an average player looks like, because it's been so long for me, I genuinely cannot empathize. And please, please, please do not take this as an insult. There are average players in every game. They are the lifeblood of a game. And as a content creator who specializes in PvP content, it's my job to make your gameplay session easier regardless of your skill level. I just think it's more valuable to be talking about potential, because that's a goal you can set your sights on. Every player started from the bottom. So you grind your way up, you improve. That's fine. But like I've been saying for the last 3 minutes, this tier list is not focused on potential. This is focused on what an average skill level gets the most bang for their buck out of. And here we go. Let's hop right into it now that everything has been prefaced. So we're starting at the very bottom, which is difficult to pilot and has a low reward. Blade Barrage is a perfect example of this. It has throwing knives, which if you hit them, they do burn, but you have to hit them. On mouse and keyboard, this creates a skill gap where you can fan the knives the opposite direction from right to left to get the knives to land on one target, or to purposely spread them out to hit targets on any side of you, or at any distance apart split. This is super useful when you chain it with young Ahamkara's spine to get extra trip mines, or have some sort of burning build with Polaris Lance or Prometheus Lens. These type of playstyles do exist. The super is kind of risky. You have to use it very offensively, because if you pop it while someone's shooting at you, you can die out of it. It just simply doesn't have enough damage resistance. And if you pop it defensively backwards, there's a chance that you go into the ceiling and end up hurting yourself and dealing no damage to the enemy, as well as there's always a chance that, like a cartoon throwing knives at another cartoon character, you're going to hit a chalk outline of knives and there's going to be 0 damage on the opponent. You have to be playing out of your mind for Blade Barrage not to be a liability for your team. Despite that though, it is my second favorite Hunter subclass behind the Revenant because the Revenant brought Shatter Dive, which added a movement capability that makes Hunter even better. From a sheer competitive standpoint, I can't not play Revenant. In the same way that Revenant makes Blade Barrage almost redundant, the bottom tree Striker makes top tree Arcstrider almost redundant with the melee gameplay loop. With the top tree Arcstrider, you dodge to get an extended melee, you dodge to get your melee ability back, and if you kill them with the melee ability, you get your health back and your dodge back. So it creates this loop where you bounce from target to target, dodging and meleeing with extended distance. The issue though is that bottom tree Striker can do a similar effect where it also Dune Marchers the whole team, and it gives you your health back and stability on your gun, and reloads the gun, and makes it do more damage. So instead of having to go all in on melee, which is dangerous because of shotguns on top tree Arcstrider, you can get the best of everything with just going bottom tree Striker. I also think that when it comes to average players, using the Arcstrider super is very difficult because it does involve a combo system to counter other supers and to live and be evasive. It's not immediately obvious is all I'm saying. So now let's move up the tier list. For difficult to pilot and medium reward, I use Nova Warp to demonstrate this perfectly. Shoutouts to Haru. So with Nova Warp, you have the handheld Supernova, which you consume your grenade to use it like a shotgun, and then you also have a melee ability that blows people up and hits like a truck. You also have Blink to close the gap safely by instantly teleporting on a horizontal level. Trust me, going from cover to cover instantly gives your opponent no chance, even if they're cheating, to headshot you out of it. It is so good, which is why I say it's difficult to pilot. What Nova Warp enables is using double special. So you could use a fusion rifle and a sniper rifle. You could use a shotgun and a grenade launcher and not get punished. You have 2 attempts to get your kill, and if you don't succeed, then you have to rely on the handheld Supernova and the melee ability. So Blink to get in close, that's where the skill with Blink comes in. I also gotta mention that the super has great chase down potential. I initially thought that people could outrun it, but that was me being bad with the super. It really can be used to great effect, it just takes a lot of effort. So I hope with that explanation you understand what a medium reward but difficult to pilot build looks like as I talk about, let's say, bottom tree Sentinel. It has a shoulder charge that suppresses people out of super as well as a suppressor nade. So knowing exactly how fast other supers move and map places to bank grenades or hide yourself enough to secure a shoulder charge, that can reward you a lot. But let's face it, compared to the rest of the cast, that's pretty difficult to do. And someone coming out of super doesn't really mean anything if they're also an excellent shot. Some of y'all might already be questioning the next one, which is bottom tree Arcstrider. This has a lot of tournament presence, but remember that the tournament rules are very stringent, so of course this emerges. It's the best of the restrictions. So anyway, by doing nothing, just getting shot at, you get more ability charges, as well as your dodge gives you Juggernaut, so you survive a lot more damage. That's excellent. Right there, the neutral game is incredible. But the problem is, you have to use the Arcstrider super, which has a pretty bad matchup against the rest of the cast. So even though the neutral is fantastic, the super really doesn't have much to write home about. The opposite is true for the next class, which is bottom tree Dawnblade. The super is pretty much the only reason you play this. Yes, the Phoenix Dive is pretty good for getting your health back in a pinch, but a lot of times you would rather opt for top tree Dawnblade to just get out of the situation at which you would take more damage anyway. Next up is bottom tree Nightstalker. This has some team effect, but solo and with multi-tether, you're going to have a bad time. There was a time where it shined against Shadebinder specifically. If you got frozen, you could repeatedly tether to charge light your teammates and break out of freeze. It was very clutch. So the final subclass in this category, I kept teetering on whether or not I wanted to put it in low reward or medium reward difficult to pilot, especially now that Chaos Reach has sort of been the offensive and defensive shutdown super. The economy at which you get it so often makes this class seem not as good, especially the Pulse Wave, which means if you get damage, you improve your teammates and your own handling for getting damaged. So what does top tree Nova Bomb bring to the table? Well, I already mentioned Blink, but what not to sleep on is the overcharge grenades. A Vortex nade can shut down an entire area, and Axiom bolts are very aggressive. If there's not a lot of hunters in the game, That's a good chance to switch to top tree Nova and annoy people with Axiom bolts as your team flies in and you blink through all of the danger. The super at a glance is very point and shoot, but I recommend learning to hit the Nova Bomb at the ground's downward angle so that it detonates early so that evasive supers don't have a chance to get away. Okay, so with that tier done, let's move on to difficult to pilot and high reward, the best of which is the top tree Dawnblade because it gives you freedom to play the entire map, to play the ceilings. I would say that game knowledge separates this class significantly more than mechanical skill. Almost every player that you show the simple Icarus dash movement to can pick it up pretty quickly to great effect. But to learn the class, you have to understand every map ceiling barrier, every out of bounds area, how fast you can cross through that, and then get your cooldowns to a point at which you can do it when you need to. You can completely shut down other supers by just floating off the map. So on maps with open areas, top tree Dawnblade is undisputed the best. That's just the tip of the iceberg though. The entire kit of Dawnblade is useful. The solar grenade is not only an area of effect, but instant damage and burning to prevent healing. You also have the Celestial Fire melee, which pierces Titan barricades and can sometimes splash around walls. Its radius is way more generous than you think. You can also consume the grenade to get in-air accuracy with weapons that otherwise don't have it. You could use Izanagi's Burden from the air with perfect accuracy with Heat Rises. That's potential. Finally, let's talk about the super. I know talented players that can use top speed on Dawnblade and thread the needle while throwing the sword. So I think another thing in terms of the skill gap here is air striking with Dawnblade. I'm keeping it realistic. A lot of people don't do this, but they really could without getting punished. The number one thing that separates Dawnblades and super fights is management of the super. Sometimes doing nothing at all and waiting for the other person's super to run out is the right call. Sometimes they're going to sit third person and look at you, making you aggress them, which is not the play. Instead, you can go for airstrikes on their teammates on a capture point, deny power ammo, that kind of thing. You just need to see more Dawnblades start tapping into this and learning the actual angles and getting a feel for airstrikes that are blind. Backtracking just a little bit here, remember that no $1 million tournaments are played for Destiny, so there's no incentive to learn all of this extra stuff that might be the realistic difference maker between winning and losing. In a similar way, the Behemoth subclass was slept on because it takes slightly more effort to play with other stasis classes, and at this point, I don't even think that's necessary anymore after learning it better. So hear me out. Sliding while doing a melee sends out a row of crystals. Then you use your Glacier Grenade on that row of crystals. Then you use your Barricade on all of those crystals to detonate them to give you an overshield while simultaneously replenishing your melee ability. From there, you can decide what to do, whether or not you throw down again to get damage resistance, to extend your overshield, or to push up to mid very fast and set up another fortress in mid that you can do because it's only a couple seconds away from having not only another Glacier Nade, but also another Barricade, which starts the engine again and again. As I started improving with the subclass, games were ending faster and faster. The level of aggression that this enables allows you to finish a game before a competent Chaos Reach can even charge their super. I find that kinda nuts. But even if they did charge it, listen, you get damage resistance when you're near a crystal, and your full overshield is basically free because of how quickly your abilities recharge. So when you anticipate a Chaos Reach charging, when you know they menu over to Geomags, what you do, send the melee out, throw the crystal down, Barricade, send the melee out again, and pull out Deadman's Tail and aim towards the sky. If they roll around the corner, you will out TTK them in the animation even if they precast it. High key, I slept on this class. This class did exactly what Shadebinder used to do. It takes a little bit more effort now, but the same playstyle is possible. If I am streaming and I get 6 stream snipers who want to use their super on just me, Behemoth is the only class in the game that gets to say not only no, but hell no. I'm not the one to main a class in Destiny. I play whatever gives my opponents the most trouble, whatever complements my teammates the best, or whatever plays the map the best. Out of those 3 categories, that's how I decide what to play. Nowadays, I might just be playing Behemoth. But as usual, those are just my reasons. Feel free to disagree. That's perfectly fine. The next class to talk about is Shadebinder. It has a slowing turret, the best slow build in the game, and also the best dueling super in the game. The entire cast, the entire list of everything you see doesn't hold a candle to Shadebinder. The next one is a bit wishy-washy. This is the bottom tree Nova Bomb, so you consume your grenade to replenish your health, and then for a couple seconds, if you get a kill, it replenishes your health again. this can be with a weapon. It sounds amazing, right? If you have a better primary or a better special weapon shot than your opponent, you have infinite health, God mode, and blink enabled. But the problem is, in Destiny, having full health doesn't really mean much because at any point you can get sniped, just instantly done. I could easily be convinced to move Bottom Tree Nova Bomb anywhere on this tier list. I don't know how to feel about it. But this next one on the list, my feelings are pretty solidified. Bottom Tree Golden Gun is an absolute threat for a high skill player because you can get an early super by landing headshots as normally, and your knife can bounce. This creates a scenario where, yes, there is a possibility that you Happy Gilmore final putt bounce the knife off the ceiling and get a headshot 5 out of 5 rounds in Trials of Osiris. But is that realistic? Not really. What is realistic is using the super to counter and extending the duration by landing headshots. That can be done. Moving on to Way of the Current, Reflect Strider. By using Shinobu's Vow to be abusive with abilities and Raiju's Harness to be abusive with the super, this class can hold up. It fixes a lot of the problems of Arcstrider because you can use it in total safety by just simply blocking. You can reflect things. You can use the super pop animation to reflect back shutdown supers. Moving on, the final class to talk about is the Way of the Wraith, Spectral Blades. By crouching and getting a headshot, you get wall hacks for 3 seconds, which a good player can take big advantage of. So you have to get the headshot in the first place, which is why I say this is difficult to pilot. The grenade's good, and the smoke is like stasis before stasis existed, and the super is really good for roaming because it also gives you free wall hacks so you can choose the smartest time to aggress. So now we move up the tier list, where we want to start talking about classes that may not be the best to the best players, but to someone who is average in skill, they might get more out of the class than the difficult to pilot ones. This brings us to the medium effort / skill required, but it gives you a medium reward part of the tier list. The class that I think exemplifies this is Code of the Commander. Yes, you have to know how to place grenades, but once you place them right, it poisons people, which makes them easier to follow up. Suppressors are amazing in their own regard because of shutting down supers, but you have to know how to bait them. The super itself is a giant shield, which is indestructible to most things except freeze, and you can throw the frisbee, which is GPS heat-seeking guiding, does all the work for you. So for those reasons, I think it's a comfortable pick for somebody who has a decent handle on Destiny 2. The next class is the Middle Tree Sunbreaker, known for its throwing hammer and one-hit kill sticky grenades if you can get that engine started. But again, we're talking about average players here, so the real reason this is up here is because the super is really good. It sends out tracking thermites which can turn 90 degrees and still kill aerial opponents. It's nuts. So moving on, we have the Top Tree Stormcaller for an all-around medium setup. Its grenade is immediately useful, and its super is pretty good. Yes, a high-skill Stormcaller can absolutely make it one of the strongest classes in the game, but for our average skill level, it does everything pretty well. On the opposite end, the Top Tree Nightstalker, the Tether class, has a wonderful neutral game that makes you invisible and more comfortable pushing up, a smoke to mess with the radar, but the super leaves a lot to be desired because most classes just move out of the way before they actually get suppressed. For Top Tree Gunslinger, pretty much everything I said about Stormcaller applies here. Yes, a top player can make it better. They can use Young Ahemkar's Spine and set up an aerial denial build. You can have an aimbot level player just decimate a team with instant kill 6-shooters, but for an average skill player, the 6-shooter leaves a lot of room to miss shots and still get some mileage out of the super. The neutral game still lets you miss a grenade or two and have it be useful, or miss a knife and have it be useful. So Top Tree Striker and Top Tree Sunbreaker have the shoulder charge in common, as well as ability spam and a decent super to trade out. So all of that combined means that the lower skill player doesn't know any better. They don't know that they're potentially delivering you a free shotgun kill on a silver platter, so they rush in for the aggressive shoulder charge, and sometimes it works because from the top player's perspective, they know that it doesn't make much sense to just mindlessly rush in, so they have the primary out ready to put chip damage in, but oh no, there's the shoulder charge. That only really works once, and then once you know what kind of player you're dealing with, you just get free shotgun kills for the rest of the match. But anyway, the presence of the shoulder charge seems to give these players the confidence they need to hold forward and let the kit do all the work. As an observation of the skill level, I see these players at one of two speeds, either shoulder charge mindless aggression forward, or back in the map with a pulse or a dead man's tail scout rifle, and they kind of just wait for their cooldowns and supers, spam abilities, and expect you to approach them. They're not really doing themselves favors to win the match, but that's really okay because it's casual PvP, you don't always have to play to win, and that's the beauty of an average skill tier list. Moving on, the next section of the vid is medium effort or skill required for a high reward, with Revenant leading the pack here. And a note on Revenant, the use of the Glacier Grenade and identifying what scenario is the best for the Glacier Grenade, whether you're getting a new angle, getting a revive, blocking off a sightline, getting an advantageous peek, or shutting down a shotgun rusher and or even being aggressive yourself with it, this is what separates the worst Revenant from the best Revenant. There still can be a pretty big gap. But the thing about Revenant is the simple addition of having the Shatter Dive action to get you out of the air is enough to help players of all skill levels fix their mistakes. I know some of you skimmed around on this video, so I just want to say another note here that our definitions of average might be different. For the gameplay in the background, I'm trying to simulate what somebody getting their feet wet with competitive gameplay would look, where they're sort of missing some of the mechanical aspect, but they have enough going for them that they can really dominate the average player. And so that's what the gameplay is trying to look like. So I really do want to represent the whole spectrum of average, where you have a player that maybe isn't mechanically great, but understands the flow of the game. For that player, the bottom tree Stormcaller gives you a lot of reward for that medium effort. At the very least, you could set down a rift to create arc buddies, and those arc buddies end up boosting your teammates by helping them first identify if there's someone in front of them by shooting before you even see the enemy, and then doing enough chip damage to allow you to 2-tap with a 120. In Iron Banner, this can carry an entire team on its own. Moving on, the bottom tree Sunbreaker has great latent potential when starting the Sunspot engine. By getting a solar ability kill, it creates a sunspot which not only damages other players, but also heals you on that kill. It also boosts your damage when you pass over the sunspot and extends it, allowing for more easier sunspot creation with 120 RPM 2-taps. The melee is great for trading and does a lot of damage, so you really can burn people out even if you lost the gunfight. And the super has a fantastic matchup against nearly all of the cast, as well as it lasts forever, so you can pop first, someone can counter pop, and you can still outlast them. So this next class, like bottom tree Arcstrider, even though it does have a great tournament presence, the sheer use of a bottom tree striker puts fear into everybody within melee distance, because if you hit somebody, first of all, your melee lunge desyncs, so they can't really return fire because you're teleporting on their screen. If you land the melee, you might Dune Marcher chain 30-meter electricity and hit their teammates and turn around a 1v3 situation just for hitting the melee button. So because it's so scary, just with that alone, people avoid the melee distance, but it gets even worse. You improve your damage and you restore your health for a melee. So people seriously just don't deal with it. And for the average skill player, by just selecting this subclass, they have effectively conditioned their opponent to stay away at a more comfortable distance for them, where they might just pulse rifle them down. We're almost to the end, I promise. We're moving on to the tier of low effort and skill required, but it gives you a high reward. You can essentially take these classes along with you in a trials card and carry a player who knows nothing about Destiny by directing them as if their toolkit is your own. So the first of which is the Attunement of Grace Healer Warlock. By telling them to go Boots of the Assembler or Starfire Protocol and spam healing all the time, you can essentially just enter every gunfight with a damage boost and an overshield at very little effort from your teammate. The top tree Bubble and the Well of Radiance can create orbs of light and hold down the center of the map if that's what you needed. The reason Missile Titan is up there is because all you have to do is wait for your super and you've essentially secured a round, because you are getting a kill with missile or you're guaranteeing a counter super with that missile. So now that I've explained the entire tier list up until this point, you would understand why I put Chaos Reach in its own tier, for barely any skill or effort required for a very high reward, being the first super that exists in the match. By using Geomag stabilizers and playing very passively at 10 intellect, farming dynamo and that kind of thing, you can have a super that is both offensively good and pierces through the walls sometimes and catches people behind cover, and is a good shutdown that you can float off map and then weave back inward. Of course, an average skill player isn't really going to know how to abuse any of that, but like I said, if you're in a trial situation where you're carrying somebody, just tell them to throw on Chaos Reach, Boots of the Assembler, use the damage boost to win engagements the best you can and help your team, and then switch to Geomags when it's super time, and end up getting a super first with barely any effort. Again, to the person who randomly clicked around the video, I am not saying that if you use Chaos Reach you have no skill. There are plenty of skilled Chaos Reach users when we're talking about the best players in the world. They use the kit like no other. You are not safe in the air because of their use of the ball lightning. They know how to glide off surfaces, and Skrull will fly at you with a shotgun. They use Pulse Wave to boost their whole team. Seriously, there can be a skill gap with Chaos Reach. It's just the presence of Geomags right now kinda make it free, to where you really don't have to have the skill level to make it to the super first. So this creates a scenario for me on certain trials maps where I play Chaos Reach. Some of you consider me a skilled player, some of you think I'm trash, that's fine. I play Chaos Reach because I want to dictate the pace of the match and make them approach me. Because if they're using Chaos Reach and I'm using Chaos Reach, then at least we're guaranteed to have similarly charging supers. So with that being said, as long as I play normally, they have to come to me or risk getting supered. That's the strength for a high level player using Chaos Reach. I just laid out the reasons that an average player would find this useful. So with that said, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope this was a thought-provoking tier list, and in the future I will be abundantly clear whether or not I'm talking about the competitive potential of a class or considering the average skill level. I neglected to do that in the past, and it shows in the comment sections. Thanks again for listening. Let me know if you enjoyed it.
I'm gonna rotate around.
I hit him with the airstrike. He's dead.
Shit. Yeah, cool guy. Watch, we're getting flanked. Cool guy, watch, we're getting flanked.
He's stuck in dark now.
Good place, Cam.
Go for cool guy.
Body's wither hoarded. I'm getting res.
Yep.
I'm gonna airstrike the body again and not even go
Yep,
for him.
Full health. Full health.
He has a
He has that fucking helmet on, and my body's in a bad spot.
Where's he at?
He's down low by the big thick pillar. To your left. Jumping up. Nah, no, he's getting ammo. Ammo for a sniper. He's down low by shrine. Shrine. Good try with the nade. He's coming up. No, he's out. He's out. He's looking around. He's down low. Behind the big thick pillar. Behind big thick. Dude, I'm telling you, he's probably gonna pop. He's not on me. He's behind the big thick pillar. He's probably waiting for time.
I have reach. We're good.
Okay. He popped it. He popped
Wait
it.
it out, cool guy.
Yeah, wait it out. Wait it. He's coming now. Now, up top now.
It's over, my guy. He's
I
still
win.
half. Ooh.